Nipun, welcome to AI to Peace.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great. So, the first thing I want to do is we'd love you to tell us about yourself and your journey.
Well, I grew up in the Silicon Valley, and growing up in a place like this, you always have those sorts of dreams. And at some point, some light switch went off inside of me and says, it's not about getting, it's perhaps a little bit more about giving. And so I experimented. I went out and did small experiments. And as I did that, I realized, man, it is fulfilling to instead of acquiring and accumulating and having a kind of power high from that, if you contribute, you are related and you feel related all the time. And so I was like, wow, this is great. Why should I wait till I'm 65 and retired to go do this? And so I started doing it. And the more I did it, the more I wanted to do it. And so that's how Service Space was born. We started an organization called Service Space back in 1999 when people didn't even know what internet was. We were building websites for nonprofits, and we'd have to convince them that, oh, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. This website, it'll help your cause. And we started there, but it wasn't about websites. It was really about giving. And so lots of people then joined and they said, hey, I want to give too. And we just created an ecosystem where it was we wanted to practice giving with no strings attached. And so that's been my journey, really, I would say, from consumption to contribution.
Amazing. Thank you. So, I want to talk to you about when you hear this phrase AI to peace, hashtag AI to peace. What's the reality of that outcome?
Well, I love this quote by E.O. Wilson, he says, we have Paleolithic reactions, medieval institutions, and godlike technologies. So I think we live in times of incredible leverage with technology. But we really, that needs to keep pace with our consciousness. If we don't evolve as human beings, and this technology continues to evolve, I think we'll have a real mismatch. So at one level, I worry when I hear that phrase that if it's just AI, maybe we won't get there. But at another level, I look at the possibilities of such leverage to create peace, and I think it's possible. So when I hear that phrase, the thinking in my mind is, yeah, we can do it, but it will require some rewiring. So we're not just working with medieval institutions and Paleolithic reactions.
Hmm. I mean, it's very clear that, understanding more about the other side and finding the similarities is what creates peace. When you understand somebody else's culture and some of the reasons why they make the decisions that they make. Equally, AI can be used in terms of how the military machine is thinking about it, and that creates a lot of fear. And I want you to just talk to me a little bit about that. When you think about AI, do you have fear about its development when you wake up in the middle of the night? And tell us a little bit about that. Tell us some of your thoughts. Share some of those thoughts.
Yeah, I absolutely have fears. I think there's a very non-zero chance that we could, run ourselves out of this story. Um, I think AI is incredibly potent. It's accelerating at an exponential pace. And I just don't think that our traditional systems that are meant to regulate this are equipped to handle such a fast-moving innovation. So I don't think it's going to be regulation that brings this together. I don't know if it's going to be overnight evolution of our consciousness that all of a sudden reins it in. And so I'm not really sure what will. But I do have faith that something will. I think it'll be something nonlinear. I don't know what it is, but I think we have to keep planting those seeds, and I think it's possible.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then, if you think it's possible, and I do too, of course we do. We're optimists, and we've got to get up every day and do the absolute best we can. Every mountain's climbable. It's just about how long you're willing to take in order to get to the top, right? How many times you can fall down, get back up, and give it another go. And that's, of course, what we're all going to do and try to do. So, talk to me a little bit about some of the hopeful stuff. When you think about AI, and you want to share some of those stories about how it can be utilized in relation to a more peaceful and sustainable world. What are some of the kind of constructive, positive sides that you see?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's so many. Recently humans had a conversation with a whale for 20 minutes for the first time ever because we decoded whale language using AI. And so you're like, wow, can you actually imagine if we're able to communicate with all life with that? It was really just a language translation problem, and now AI helps us solve it. You're like, wow, okay. And you look at the advances in medicine, and lots of the AI leaders are saying that a lot of the diseases that we have today are all going to go extinct in no time. Most recently they had, there's like unending amounts of things that are being innovated on that are just like mind-blowingly wow. And I would say we have to be mindful that if we don't change the underlying social operating system, the thing that holds this will just be, will be our lower impulses and not our higher impulses. The lower impulses being, greed and self-centeredness and accumulation and extraction. And if we lead with those impulses, I think we can take this. And even that simple whale example, you're like, it's amazing that I would be able to talk to whales. And then you say, well, what would I say? What would the first contact with whales be? And would I just say that, look, I can get these human laborers for this much amount of money? Can I get the whales for even cheaper? And that you can bring that extractive mindset to these innovations, but you can also then say, wow, what does it mean if your assets meet my assets and they come together in an emergent way to create new properties that previously nobody has ever seen? So I think it's possible to approach AI and innovations in this way. And certainly at Service Space, we've been doing a lot of that. We started several years ago around this idea of a compassion bot. And so we said, well, what would compassion do in this kind of a situation? And we started doing a whole lot of those different things. And we're trying to solve hard problems, and hard problems that have social ramification, like not just like, oh, how do I get to the best restaurant and how do I take a photo of my fridge and that tells me the AI will scan all the items I have and give me recipes. I mean, that's helpful, but really deeply transformative things, and particularly around giving and generosity. So one problem humanity is really has not been able to solve is bringing people's gifts together with the hunger of the world. So there's so many people everywhere that want to give, and there's so much need in the world. But to actually pair them up ends up being a very hard problem. We've been doing this for 25 years. So that's a really hard problem to solve because it's just a huge amount of overhead to make that happen. So we can't do that at scale. And so you say, can AI help us do that? Like not just accelerate status quo, right? Or automate the status quo, but to say that status quo has not been what it could be. And so how do we get a design upgrade on the status quo, and how do we leverage something like AI to actually get us there? So these are open questions, but I do think we can look at it in that deep way.
Amazing. It's wonderful to hear you speak. If people would like to support you, on your journey and the organization, they want to find out more, how can they do that?
Well, you can go to servicespace.org, and it's many different organisms, I suppose, or instead of organizations that have these micro communities, one of which around AI is called Awaken AI. So awaken.ai is the place you can go. But really, I would say that it's really just about doing a small act of kindness. And that sounds so benign, right? You're like, well, what can a small act of kindness do? But I think instead of broadcast, which is what we're all engaged in, the world's center of gravity is around broadcasting our messages. But I think there's something about the power of deep casting, that heart to heart to heart, that I think if you do a small act and you put a lot of love into it, it will touch that one person. And the half life of that is so much stronger than something you saw, on your feed or something you heard about or read about. So I would say that my ultimate call to action would be to go out and be the change, do a small act of love for absolutely with no strings attached, just kindness for the sake of kindness.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. What a beautiful finish. Thank you so much for talking to us for AI to Peace. And we wish you the very best with your incredible work. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.